Hello everybody, it's KhalifPVP bringing another Overwatch video. This time we're going to be talking about the meta of Overwatch, rather the kind of stagnation, what I would say, of the meta, where you kind of see the same heroes over and over again, and trying to see what Blizzard can really do to change that up, what can occur to maybe add some excitement to the meta picks and whatnot. Now, a little preface, I am going to be comparing this to a lot of MOBAs, and I know MOBAs aren't necessarily a good one-to-one comparison with Overwatch, largely because with different game styles, the ability to switch heroes and whatnot, and so on and so forth. So, but I do want to mention, kind of, it gives you a bit of insight as to what you can do with the meta. So if you started off with Dota 2, for example, and you look at the top percentage, like the 5k plus, and you look at the pick percentage, you see a pretty decent distribution, with the exception of Pudge, who is above 30%, about 40%, and I think it's largely because of his hook. If you look at all the other heroes, you see a pretty decent distribution, and more specifically, no hero is really breaking the 50% or greater mark, and it's kind of consistent even in the lower tiers as well. You see relatively a good distribution of heroes. Same thing with League of Legends. You have, if you look at the solo queue popularity, again a pretty decent distribution, very similar to, I would say, your Dota 2 one as well, where you have kind of around the 30 mark. It seems to be most of the ceiling, or rather the soft ceiling. So you have the popularity sitting around 30 or so, and again in 3-on-3 you have popularity sitting around 30 or so, with couple heroes bumping above 40. So this is very consistent. I mean, if you're watching a game of Dota 2 or League of Legends, chances of you staring at the same hero composition between game after game is pretty slim, as you can see by the distribution. If you look at Dota 2, or rather Overwatch, you see the meta, essentially the 6 heroes that are available being all above the 50% usage mark, and more specifically, they're all pretty much the same hero. So here's from the December 1st to the 12th, the quarterfinals, and you see, Ana, Lucio being the healers. For the tank, you see Reinhardt, you see Roadhog, and again, if you look at the latest one that Overbuff has posted, you see Reinhardt being the tank again, Ana, Lucio being healers, and pretty much the same exact hero composition, with the only exception being Ana drops to B tier, and Zenyatta moves up a little bit. And I suspect the difference of Lucio and Reinhardt being kind of flip-flopped, as well as the healer and Ana, I think it's because of the map picks. For maps like Hanamura, you're probably going to want Reinhardt a lot more than you want any of the other heroes, as well as being able to kind of heal. So in Overwatch, compared to the MOBAs, you can see the meta is really kind of stagnant in terms of diversity. In my opinion, I suspect this to be true because each of the meta heroes have a really unique thing that nobody else can pretty much do. Take, for example, Lucio, right? Nobody can really give you a speed boost in Overwatch. More specifically, nobody can give you a speed boost and AoE heal. Like with Lucio, his amp it up and just his passive heal from his song is pretty decent. Like if your main healer Ana is doing her job, your other support heroes should not be taking any damage. So Lucio's heal plus the amp up usually will be able to keep up most of your teammates. Take Reinhardt, for example, right? His shield is pretty unique. I know other classes can put up shields like Winston and now the new Symmetra, but Reinhardt has an on-demand shield, whereas Winston is stationary, and Symmetra's it just goes in its own, doing its own thing, right? Reinhardt can pretty much move to mitigate threats. So if somebody's in front of, he can aim his shield front. If it's in the back, aim it back, so on and so forth. And his shield is pretty strong enough to last a decent amount of damage. So for things like Hanamura, right, the first gate of Hanamura, and even the second one really, but more so this first one, you really needed Reinhardt to mitigate a lot of the damage that are coming through that choke point. I mean, you can win with other heroes, you can get past that first point with other heroes, but having a Reinhardt makes it that much more easier. And then you have things like Ana. Ana is pretty much one of the only heroes that has a heal debuff. Being hit by that little grenade that Ana can throw out completely messes up all healers, right? It completely nullifies them. So being able to do essentially, you know, a very unique thing is largely why I think the meta is the way it is. So what's the easiest way to make it so that the meta is a bit more lively, a bit more diverse? I think one of the biggest contributing factors for the lack of diversity in the meta is our game mode. And every single game mode in Overwatch so far, at least the competitive ones, is attack or defense. And that's the key word there, attack or defense. You have one team attacking and another team defending. That's pretty much about it. So this leads to the stagnation, largely because, you know, you have certain heroes that are really good at defending and certain heroes that are really good at attacking, and you don't really need to think about the other. So I would highly suggest introducing game modes that have attack and defense, and being the key word. So games like Capture the Flag, where you have to have heroes that are defending your control, your flag, and you have to have heroes that are attacking the enemy flag. That way you have to think not just, okay, you know, let's put a Mei here and we'll just run with it because all we had to do is defend, or let's put a Symmetra and all we had to do is defend. You have to think more about, okay, if we have this hero, if we have a Reinhardt, you know, how does that play into our attacking aspect, right? Similarly, I think having perhaps multiple control points. So we already have the King of the Hill maps. So having multiple control point King of the Hills, I think Blizzard actually already tried that. I don't know what happened to it, but having multiple of that will definitely benefit, because now you got to think about, you know, what control point are we going to defend? Lucio is not going to be able to solo heal a control point if that control point gets bum rushed. So we got to kind of think about those aspects to make the meta a little bit more lively. So a bit more drastic change, I would say, is something akin to what happened with Symmetra. So for those of you that know, Symmetra now has 2 ultimates, and what that 2 ultimate that really does is it gives the player the opportunity for choice. So it's no longer, okay, here's my ultimate, I'm going to put it down. You have to actively think about which ultimate you're going to use, either the shield generator or the teleport, and figure out why it's useful for the current situation. So with that being said, I would highly recommend adding more comparable heroes to the game. So if you look at some of the latest pro games, some of the latest like championship games. So here's the I think the winter premiere for Overwatch, where 2 teams are going. You can see that, you know, 4 out of 6 rather of the heroes on both teams are pretty much the same. And in fact, if you go later into the video, you'll see that they end up becoming 5 out of 6, with the only exception being Zenyatta versus Lucio. And this gives you the idea that, you know, most of these characters are so useful, and really they don't have any comparable characters that you need those characters in the game. So for Reinhardt, you need a Reinhardt for the game if you want to get like a stationary shield. For Roadhog, he's like one of the only, if not the very few characters in the game that can completely mess up the positioning of an opponent. And you have Zarya, that's one of the only few characters that can put a shield on your allies. So for that purpose, you know, you need these heroes. So my recommendation for that aspect is give comparable heroes, meaning that they have skills that are very similar, but not necessarily the same, and they're comparable in a sense that, you know, as a player you got to figure out, okay, do I want do I want a Roadhog that has a hook that can do X, Y, and Z, or do I want a new character that can do A, B, and C? So an example of a very unique character is Lucio. He's pretty much the only one that can do a speed boost for your whole entire team. And he's also one of the few characters that can, actually the only character that can give consistent AoE healing, right? So you have a couple characters that can do AoE healing sometimes, like you have Ana that with her bomb can do AoE healing, and Zenyatta can do AoE healing with his ultimate, but Lucio is the only one that can do AoE healing consistently. So one of the things where you kind of, an example of a comparable character will be a new hero that can do AoE healing, but with a slight twist, right? An example of a possible hero is, here's an example called by, what is it, Rein, by a artist named Mario Manzanares. And for his example, he had more of an offensive hero. But I'm going to switch it up a bit and kind of illustrate, or rather give an example of what a comparable hero to Lucio would look like. So in this version, I would make him a support hero, where his primary attack is very similar to Mei's Icicle in terms of kind of look and feel, but the difference being that instead of doing damage, it just puts on a heal debuff for a short duration. So anybody hit by his attack just gets a heal debuff. And his ult attack is very similar to Lucio's Boop in terms of cooldown and I would say spread. So think about a little bit more of a shotgun spread than the Boop, but with the same cooldown and mechanics, being that it does damage rather than the heal debuff. So before I talk about this guy's next skill, let's talk about his passive. I want it to be comparable to Lucio's 360 AoE heal, but a bit different. So my suggestion will be like he leaves behind like a smoke trail, where players that walk through that smoke trail gets health back similar to Lucio's maybe amped up heal, right? The difference being his smoke trail lasts maybe 3 seconds behind him or whatever the case is, and so it's different, right? So it's not like you get an AoE heal or 360. You have to be moving around to get your teammates' health up. And his second attack could be multiple different ones. You could make it a large puff of smoke that makes healing a little bit more easier, or you can convert it to a more an offensive skill where the snake does the heal debuff, similar to Ana's grenade, but single target and lasts longer, or what have you. But again, similar. It's a comparable skill, I would say. Finally, his heal, or his ultimate rather, I would combine this with Ana's grenade that puts up the heal debuff in an AoE radius, combined with essentially Zenyatta's heal, Zenyatta's ultimate. So what it is, I would say, is you put down this thing. It's a stationary, unlike Zenyatta, who can move around and push with the payload and push with the objective. This one's a stationary AoE similar to Zenyatta's heal, but added bonus being that any enemies inside of it and for a couple seconds after they leave gets hit with a heal debuff. So what this comparable hero did is essentially give you the choice to pick a very comparable hero for Lucio. You can kind of think, okay, do I want AoE healing consistently, or do I want this smoke trail that has maybe a little bit more healing, has a little bit more versatility with its heal debuffs, and has a little bit more of a versatile ultimate? So you have that choice that you can make from having a comparable hero. Another example will be, somewhat comparable to Reinhardt. Reinhardt has that giant shield that's really useful, right? You can come up with a hero that has a shield-like capability. Maybe it's a dome, similar to Winston, right? But it's movable and takes less damage than Reinhardt's. You can come up with a smaller shield than Reinhardt that has more damage than Reinhardt's shield. So you can have comparable heroes that has a very unique concept to them, right? But it's also comparable to an existing hero. So folks, that pretty much wraps up my video on what I would hope to change the meta right now, because those of you that do watch any of the pro games will know that, you know, the meta is very, very similar. You know, every single time you can guarantee you're gonna find a Reinhardt, an Anna, and a Roadhog, and the rest of the heroes are pretty much the same exact heroes. So my goal is hopefully that, you know, adding these changes would make the thing a little bit more lively, a little bit more entertaining. And let me know what you guys think. Did I hit the nail on the head? You know, is it something that is a problem, or is it something that we're making a, you know, a mountain out of an anthill? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you do like the video, please do like and subscribe. And until next time, it's KhalifPVP.